Ambassador Marcus Reed stood in the center of the massive Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime. The curved walls rose high above him, filled with floating platforms where alien representatives sat in their comfortable seats. For 30 years, Marcus had walked these halls. Today would be his last time. The message from Earth Command burned in his pocket. 3 simple words that would change everything. Recall all humans. Chancellor Crix of the Veltari Empire leaned forward on his platform. His blue-scaled face showed the same arrogance Marcus had seen for decades. Ambassador Reed, we understand humans are upset about the mining rights on Kepler-7. We can discuss new terms. Marcus almost laughed. They still thought this was about money or territory. They had no idea what was really happening. Honored council members, Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. I stand before you today to deliver humanity's final message to this body. The chamber fell quiet. Even the floating platforms stopped their gentle movement. After 150 years of membership in this galactic council, humanity is withdrawing from all galactic affairs. We are ending our participation in trade agreements, defense pacts, and diplomatic relations. The silence lasted for exactly 3 seconds. Then the chamber erupted. Prime Minister Yelith of the Hegemony stood up on her platform, her forearms waving wildly. This is impossible. Humans cannot survive without galactic trade routes. Your species depends on our technology, shouted Council Member Thex from across the chamber. You will come crawling back within a year. Marcus waited for the noise to die down. He had expected this reaction. The aliens had always seen humans as useful servants, nothing more. They built their ships, maintained their stations, and fought their wars. But they were never treated as equals. Chancellor Crix raised his hand and the chamber became quiet again. Ambassador, surely you do not speak for all of humanity. This withdrawal notice has no legal authority. Marcus pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed President Adams sitting at her desk in the Earth Command building. Council members, President Adams said through the hologram, this message has the full authority of the Human United Government. Ambassador Reed speaks with my voice and the voice of every human world. We are done. The hologram flickered and disappeared. Marcus put the device back in his pocket. This is madness, Yelith screamed. Humans are nothing without us. You mine our asteroids. You fix our machines. You fight our enemies. What will you do alone in your little corner of space? Marcus remembered the day his son died. Lieutenant David Reed had been leading a human battalion defending the Veltari colony on Arcturus. The enemy had broken through their lines, and David had stayed behind to buy time for the alien civilians to escape. The Veltari government had given David a medal. They called him a hero, but when Marcus asked them to name a street after his son, they said human names were too difficult for Veltari children to pronounce. We will be fine, Marcus said simply. Council member Brox from the mining guild stood up. You cannot take your infrastructure with you. The trade stations, the defense platforms, the navigation beacons, they belong to the council. Check your contracts, Marcus replied. All infrastructure built by humans belongs to humans. We built it, we maintained it, and we will take what we choose to take. The truth was, humans had been preparing for this day for decades. Every piece of technology they had given to the aliens had hidden flaws. Every system they maintained had backdoors only humans knew about. The aliens thought they understood human technology, but they only knew how to use it. Chancellor Crix's voice became threatening. If you try to sabotage council property, we will consider it an act of war. Marcus smiled for the first time that day. Chancellor, humanity has been at war for you for over a century. We have fought the Ravager clans, the Shadow Fleet, and the Void Hunters. We have bled on 1,000 worlds to protect alien civilians who would not even learn our names. He walked toward the exit, then stopped and turned back to face the council. Let me tell you what will happen next. Within 6 hours, every human will be gone from every council world. Every human ship will leave council space. Every human station will go dark. And you will finally learn what it means to stand on your own. This is economic suicide, Yalith shouted. Your people will starve. Marcus shook his head. Counselor, you have never bothered to learn anything about humanity beyond what we could do for you. You do not know how many worlds we control. You do not know how large our fleets are. You do not know what technologies we have developed in secret. The aliens began talking among themselves in worried voices. For the first time, Marcus saw doubt in their eyes. "We offered you partnership," Marcus continued. "We shared our knowledge freely. We bled for your worlds. In return, you gave us the worst seats in this chamber and called us junior partners. You stole our inventions and claimed them as your own. When we asked for respect, you laughed." Chancellor Crix leaned forward again. "What do you want, Reed? Money? Territory? Better trade deals? Name your price." "Our price was equality. You refused to pay it. Now it is too late." Marcus reached the chamber door and activated his personal communicator. "Command, this is Reed. The message has been delivered." "Understood, Ambassador. Transport leaves in 10 minutes. All humans are ready for extraction." The aliens could hear the transmission. They began to realize this was really happening. "Wait," Chancellor Crix called out. "We can negotiate. We can give you better representation." Marcus paused at the door. "Chancellor, do you remember the Battle of Sigma Station?" Crix nodded slowly. Everyone remembered that battle. Human forces had held off an entire Ravager fleet to protect 3 million alien civilians. "Do you remember what happened to Commander Williams and her crew?" The chamber became very quiet. Commander Williams had sacrificed her ship to destroy the Ravager command vessel. She and her crew of 200 humans had died to save those alien civilians. "The Council gave them medals," Crix said quietly. "The Council refused to let human families visit the memorial," Marcus replied. "You said the cemetery was for Council species only. You built the monument in a language humans cannot read." Marcus opened the door. "You had 150 years to treat us as equals. You chose not to. Now you will learn to survive without us." As the door closed behind him, Marcus heard the aliens begin to argue among themselves. They were already blaming each other for losing their most valuable partners. Marcus walked through the station corridors one last time. Human workers were packing their equipment and preparing to leave. The aliens watched nervously as humans shut down systems and removed critical components. At the transport dock, Marcus met Captain Torres, the head of station security. "All humans accounted for, sir," Torres reported. "The last transport leaves in 5 minutes." Marcus nodded and looked out the window at the space around Nexus Prime. Dozens of human ships were already gone. The few remaining vessels were loading the last evacuees. "Captain, transmit the final message on all frequencies." "Yes, sir." The message was simple. You had your chance. As Marcus's transport pulled away from Nexus Prime, he watched the massive station grow smaller in the distance. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, something ancient and hungry had been watching and waiting. The aliens thought they were losing their servants. They had no idea they were losing their protectors. The transport jumped to hyperspace, carrying the last humans away from the Galactic Council forever. Behind them, deep space monitors detected movement in the void between galaxies. Something fast was finally beginning to move toward their galaxy. The countdown had begun, Captain. Elena Vasquez stared at the navigation display and cursed under her breath. The patrol ship Harmony's Edge was supposed to be following a simple trade route through the outer rim, but the navigation system kept giving her wrong coordinates. "Garcia, run another diagnostic on the nav computer," she ordered. Her communications officer, a young Veltari named Jorix, looked up from his station. "Captain, this is the 4th diagnostic we have run today. The computer keeps saying the same thing. Navigation protocols are outdated." Elena rubbed her temples. It had been 6 months since the humans left and everything was falling apart. The aliens had always assumed that maintaining galactic technology was simple work that anyone could do. They were learning how wrong they had been. "Captain," called out Engineer Brock from the rear of the bridge. "The quantum drive is making strange noises again. I think we need to stop at the next station for repairs." Elena looked at her mixed alien crew and felt a familiar frustration. Before the human withdrawal, problems like this never happened. Human engineers had maintained all the systems and they always worked perfectly. Now her ship limped from one crisis to another. "Set course for Haven Station," she ordered. "Maybe they still have working repair facilities." 3 hours later, the Harmony's Edge docked at Haven Station. Elena was shocked by what she saw. The station that had once been a bustling trade hub was now half empty. Many shops were closed, and the few that remained open had long lines of frustrated customers. Station Commander Yex, a 4-armed hegemony official, met Elena at the airlock. His usually neat appearance was disheveled and he looked exhausted. "Captain Vasquez, welcome to Haven Station. I hope you do not need major repairs because we are running short on replacement parts." Elena followed Yex through the station corridors. Emergency lighting flickered overhead, and she could hear the hum of overtaxed life support systems. "What happened here, Commander?" Yex sighed heavily. "The humans built most of our critical systems. They also maintained them. When they left, they took their knowledge with them. We thought we could figure it out ourselves. But human technology is more complicated than we realized." They reached the station's command center, where alien technicians worked frantically at computer terminals. Error messages flashed on dozens of screens. "Commander," called out a young technician, "the atmosphere recyclers in Section 7 just shut down." Yex rushed to help, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. She remembered how smoothly everything used to run when humans were around. They had made it look so easy. A commotion at the docking bay interrupted her thoughts. Through the window, she could see a large merchant vessel arriving. The ship's design was unfamiliar, sleek and elegant, unlike the bulky vessels most traders used. Elena made her way to the docking bay where a crowd had gathered. The merchant ship's captain was a Zenthari named Grokmar, one of the most successful traders in this sector. But today Grokmar looked shaken. "I tell you, it was the strangest thing I have ever seen," Grokmar was saying to the crowd. "Human ships, but not like any human ships we knew before." Elena pushed through the crowd. "Captain Grokmar, what are you talking about?" Grokmar turned to her with wide eyes. "Captain Vasquez." "Good to see a familiar face. I just came from the Galactic Rim, near where the humans had their outer colonies. I encountered a fleet of human vessels, but they were different." "Different how?" "The ships were beautiful, Captain. Smooth lines, advanced hull materials, energy signatures I have never seen before. When I tried to communicate, they ignored me completely. They acted like my ships did not even exist." Elena frowned. "Maybe they were just busy. That is what I thought at first. But when I tried to follow them, something strange happened. My engines just stopped working. All of them at the same time. My ships were stranded in space for 3 days." The crowd murmured nervously. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Did they attack you?" Grokmar shook his head. "They did nothing. They just kept flying toward the galactic edge, and my engines mysteriously failed. When they were finally out of sensor range, my engines started working again. It was like they had some kind of field that disrupted our technology." "That is impossible," said Commander Yex, who had just arrived. "Human technology cannot do that." Grokmar looked at him with a bitter laugh. "Commander, 6 months ago, you would have said it was impossible for humans to shut down an entire galactic trade network in 1 day. Yet here we are." Elena had to admit he had a point. The galactic economy was in chaos. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries were now unreliable. Defense grids designed to protect major worlds kept malfunctioning. Several colony worlds had gone completely silent. "There is something else," Grokmar continued. "I tried to scan the outer human colonies as I passed by. Every single one is dark. No communications, no energy signatures, nothing. It is like they just vanished." Elena felt the chill grow stronger. "All of them?" "Every single human world in the outer rim. Dozens of colonies that used to have millions of inhabitants. Now they show no signs of life at all." Commander Yex stepped forward. "That cannot be right. Humans could not evacuate entire worlds without us detecting it, unless they had technology we never knew about," Elena said quietly. The crowd fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. If humans had been hiding advanced technology, what else had they been hiding? Elena's communicator beeped. "Captain, this is the Harmony's Edge. We just received an emergency transmission from Galactic Command." "Put it through." The voice of Admiral Keth came through clearly. "All patrol vessels, return to your home bases immediately. Long-range sensors have detected unusual activity along the galactic border. Several border outposts have stopped responding to communications." Elena exchanged worried looks with the others. "Admiral, what kind of unusual activity?" "We are not sure, Captain. The sensor readings do not match any known technology. Report to Fleet Command for new orders." The transmission ended, leaving Elena with more questions than answers. She looked around at the faces of the aliens gathered in the docking bay. For the first time since the humans left, she saw real fear in their eyes. "Commander Yex, I need to get my ship repaired and return to Fleet Command immediately." Yex nodded. "Of course, Captain. We will do what we can." but our repair capabilities are limited without human technicians. As Elena headed back to her ship, Grogmar caught up with her. Captain, there is one more thing I did not mention in front of the others. Elena stopped and turned to face him. What is it? Grogmar lowered his voice. Just before my engines failed, I picked up a transmission. It was very faint, and it only lasted a few seconds. What did it say? It was a human voice speaking in their language. My translator could only pick up a few words, but I think it said something like, Phase 1 complete. They are coming. Elena stared at him. They are coming? Who is coming? Grogmar shrugged. I have no idea, Captain. But whatever the humans were preparing for, I think it is about to begin. 2 days later, Elena's ship finally limped back to Fleet Command headquarters at Nexus Prime. The massive space station that served as the government center for the Galactic Council looked different somehow. Ships moved more slowly, and there seemed to be fewer of them. As her ship docked, Elena received new orders to report directly to Admiral Keth's office. She made her way through corridors that seemed dimmer than usual, past alien officials who spoke in worried whispers. Admiral Keth was a veteran Veltari officer who had served with human forces for decades. When Elena entered his office, she was shocked by his appearance. The confident leader she remembered looked exhausted and stressed. Captain Vasquez, thank you for coming. Please sit down. Elena took a seat across from the Admiral's desk. Sir, what is the situation with the border outposts? Admiral Keth activated a holographic display showing the galactic map. Red dots marked locations where outposts had gone silent. 12 border stations have stopped responding in the past week. We sent scout ships to investigate, but they found nothing. The stations are simply gone. Gone? What do you mean gone? I mean completely destroyed, Captain. Not just damaged or abandoned, completely vaporized. Whatever did this used weapons we have never seen before. Elena studied the map. The destroyed outpost formed a rough pattern along the galactic rim, almost like something was testing the defenses. Admiral, do you think this has something to do with the human withdrawal? Admiral Keth was quiet for a long moment. Captain, I served alongside human forces for 30 years. I thought I knew them well, but now I am beginning to wonder if we ever really understood humanity at all. He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the docking bays. The humans always seemed so eager to help, so willing to fight our battles and maintain our technology. We thought they needed us as much as we needed them, and now I think they were protecting us from something we never knew existed. And when we pushed them away, we lost our guardians. Elena felt a cold fear settle in her stomach. What are your orders, Admiral? Return to your patrol sector, Captain. Keep your eyes open and report anything unusual. And Captain? Yes, sir. If you encounter any human ships, try to make contact. Tell them we need to talk. Elena left the Admiral's office with a growing sense of dread. As she walked back to her ship, her communicator beeped with an urgent message. Captain, this is communications. We just received a signal from deep space. It is very faint, but we think it might be important. Elena ran back to the communications center. The technician on duty, a nervous young Xanthari, looked up as she entered. Captain, the signal is coming from beyond the galactic edge. We can barely detect it, but the translation computer has been working on it for the past hour. What does it say? The technician looked scared. It is a human voice, Captain. But the words are wrong somehow. It says Phase 2 complete. Come home, brothers. Elena stared at the readout, her blood running cold. The voice was human, but something about it was terribly wrong. Outside the station, deep space sensors detected massive energy signatures moving toward the galaxy. The real invasion was about to begin. Commander Jake Morrison floated in the observation deck of the hidden asteroid base, watching the galaxy tear itself apart through the long-range sensors. The base was small and well hidden in the debris field of a dead star system, invisible to alien scanners but with a perfect view of the surrounding sectors. For 1 year, Jake and his team of 40 humans had monitored galactic communications from this secret location. They were supposed to be the eyes and ears of humanity, watching what happened after the withdrawal. What they had seen was worse than anyone had predicted. Commander, incoming transmission from the Hegemony Fleet, called out communications specialist Lisa Park from her station. They are requesting immediate backup at the Centauri system. Jake looked at the tactical display. The Centauri system was the 5th major battle this month between the Hegemony and the Veltari Empire. Without human peacekeepers to maintain order, Ancient hatreds between alien species had exploded into open warfare. Any response from the Veltari? Jake asked. Yes, sir. They claim the hegemony attacked first and are demanding council intervention. Jake shook his head. The Galactic Council had fallen apart 6 months ago, when member species started blaming each other for the human withdrawal. Now former allies were fighting over territory, trade routes, and old grudges that humans had helped them forget. Dr. Lisa Park, the team's xenobiologist, looked up from her computer terminal. Commander, I have been analyzing the communication patterns from the past month. The situation's getting worse. Jake walked over to her station. Lisa had been tracking the collapse of galactic civilization with scientific precision. Her reports made for grim reading. How much worse? Lisa brought up a holographic map of the galaxy. Large sections were marked in red. The Ravager clans have conquered 12 more systems while the Council forces were busy fighting each other. The trade networks have collapsed completely in the Eastern Spiral. And there are reports of something else. What kind of something else? Lisa hesitated. Ships appearing in outer systems. Ships that do not match any known alien or human designs. The few survivors who have reported them describe vessels that seem to be made of living tissue. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Show me the reports. Lisa pulled up a series of intercepted messages. They were fragmentary and often cut short, but the pattern was clear. Strange organic ships had been appearing in remote systems, and shortly afterward, those systems went silent. How many systems? Jake asked. 17 confirmed, possibly more. The aliens are so busy fighting each other that they have not noticed the pattern yet. Jake studied the map. The attack systems formed a rough circle around the galaxy's edge, like something was probing the defenses from multiple directions. Lisa, does this remind you of anything? Lisa was quiet for a moment, then her eyes widened. The Devourer Protocol. Jake nodded grimly. The Devourer Protocol was humanity's most classified military document. It detailed response plans for an invasion by extragalactic entities that fed on organic life. Most aliens had never heard of it, but human military commanders had been trained on it for generations. Commander, called out sensor operator Tom Wilson from across the room. We have incoming ships on long-range sensors. Multiple contacts, moving fast. Jake rushed to the sensor station. How many? At least 50 ships, sir. They are heading straight for the Proxima colony. Jake looked at the display. Proxima was a Veltari agricultural world with a population of 8 million civilians. It was also completely defenseless. The Veltari fleet was busy fighting the hegemony 3 sectors away. What kind of ships? Jake asked. Tom adjusted the sensors. I have never seen anything like them, sir. The hulls appear to be organic, and they are generating some kind of energy field that interferes with our scans. Lisa appeared at Jake's shoulder. Commander, those match the descriptions from the survivor reports. I think these are the entities from the Devourer Protocol. Jake watched the alien ships approach the helpless colony world. Every instinct told him to warn the Veltari, to send a message that might save 8 million lives. But his orders were clear. Observe only. Do not interfere. Sir, Tom said quietly, there are civilian transports trying to evacuate the planet. They do not stand a chance. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his voice was steady. Our orders are to monitor and report. We are not here to save alien worlds. Commander, Lisa said softly, these people did not choose to treat humanity badly. They are just civilians trying to survive. And where were the alien civilians when human colonies were being abandoned? Jake replied. When human children died because alien governments decided our worlds were not worth defending? The team watched in silence as the organic ships reached Proxima. The colony's defenses lasted less than an hour. The strange vessels landed and began releasing clouds of something that looked like spores. Within hours, all communication from the planet stopped. Beginning biological conversion process, Tom reported, reading the sensor data. Whatever those spores are, they are changing the planet's atmosphere. Jake turned away from the display. Log it and prepare a report for Earth Command. This is what the aliens chose when they pushed us away. Over the next several weeks, the pattern continued. Organic ships would appear, devastate a world, then disappear back into deep space. The alien governments were too busy fighting each other to mount an effective defense. Finally, the aliens began to understand what they were facing. Commander, incoming transmission from Nexus Prime, Tom announced one morning. It is Chancellor Crix, and he sounds desperate. Jake authorized the transmission. Chancellor Crix appeared on the main screen, looking haggard and defeated. Behind him, Jake could see emergency lighting and the sounds of alarms. This is Chancellor Crix of the Veltari Empire, transmitting on all frequencies. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. These entities use biological weapons and technology we cannot understand or counter. Crix paused, and Jake could see the pain in his eyes. We know humans are listening. We know you are still out there somewhere. We were wrong to push you away. We need your help. Our children are dying. The transmission ended. Jake's team looked at him expectantly. Any response, sir? Tom asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Send a copy to Earth Command. Let them decide. 3 days later, Jake received his answer from President Adams herself. The message was short and clear. Maintain observation protocols. Do not respond to alien communications. Commander, Lisa said after reading the message, I have been studying the alien military responses to these attacks. They are using tactics that would have worked against conventional enemies, but these devourers are completely different. Jake looked at her analysis. The aliens were trying to fight a biological invasion using traditional military strategies. It was like trying to stop a plague with battleships. What would human forces do differently? Jake asked. Everything, Lisa replied. Human doctrine for fighting devourers involves biological weapons, environmental suits, and specialized equipment the aliens do not have. We trained for this specific threat for decades. Jake realized the horrible truth. The aliens do not even know what they are fighting. Worse than that, Lisa said. They do not know how to fight it. Without human expertise, they are defenseless. As if to prove her point, the sensors detected another devourer fleet heading for the heavily populated world of New Centauri. This time the aliens had positioned a defensive fleet to protect the planet. Jake's team watched as the battle unfolded. The alien ships fought bravely, but their weapons were useless against the organic hulls of the devourer vessels. The biological invaders released clouds of spores that passed right through the aliens' energy shields and began converting their crews. Within hours, the entire defensive fleet had been turned into more devourer ships. My God, whispered Tom. They are not just destroying the fleets, they are converting them. Jake stared at the display in horror. The aliens were not just losing their battles, they were making their enemies stronger. Commander, incoming priority transmission from Earth Command, Lisa announced. Jake accepted the transmission. Admiral Hunter appeared on screen looking grim. Commander Morrison, you are to maintain strict observation protocols. Under no circumstances are you to reveal your position or make contact with alien forces. Is that understood? Yes, sir. Admiral, the aliens are being slaughtered. They have no idea how to fight these things. That is not our problem, Commander. They made their choice when they decided humanity was not worthy of respect. Now they face the consequences. The transmission ended, leaving Jake and his team in uncomfortable silence. Sir, Tom said quietly, there are over 3 billion civilians on New Centauri. Jake watched the sensors as the devourer spores began to spread across the planet's surface. I know, Tom, but those civilians supported governments that treated humans like servants. They cheered when we were denied equal representation. They celebrated when human colonies were abandoned. The children did not choose any of that, Lisa said. Jake turned to face his team. And human children died because alien adults made selfish choices. We warned them this was coming. They chose to ignore us. The team returned to their work in silence. Over the next several days, they watched as New Centauri fell to the devourers. 3 billion aliens died or were converted, and there was nothing the remaining galactic forces could do to stop it. Finally, the inevitable happened. The devourer fleets converged on Nexus Prime itself. Commander, the alien forces are attempting to defend their capital, Tom reported. They have gathered every available ship. Jake looked at the tactical display. The aliens had assembled an impressive fleet around Nexus Prime, over 1,000 ships from every member species. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. It would not be enough. Sir, incoming transmission from the alien fleet, Lisa announced. It is Chancellor Crix again. Jake reluctantly accepted the transmission. Crix appeared on screen, standing on the bridge of his flagship. Around him, Jake could see alien officers from How dozens of different species working together for the first time in months. Humans, Crick said, looking directly into the camera. I know you are watching. I know you tried to warn us about this threat, and we were too proud to listen. We understand now why you prepared so carefully for war. We understand why you built so many defenses. Crix paused as explosions flashed outside his ship's windows. We are about to die for our arrogance. But before we do, I want you to know that some of us finally understand. We should have listened. We should have treated you as equals. We should have trusted you. The transmission became static-filled as Devourer ships closed in on the flagship. If any humans survive this, Crix's voice came through the interference. Please remember that not all of us were your enemies. Some of us just took too long to become your friends. The transmission cut off as the flagship exploded. Jake stared at the blank screen for a long time. Around him, his team worked in silence as they watched the fall of Nexus Prime. The galaxy's capital burned for 3 days. When it was over, the Galactic Council was gone forever. Commander, Tom said quietly. What happens now? Jake looked at the sensor displays showing Devourer fleets spreading across the galaxy like a plague. Now we wait and see if humanity's real plan works. Real plan, sir? Jake smiled grimly. Tom, did you really think we withdrew just because our feelings were hurt? We have been preparing for this invasion for 200 years. The withdrawal was just phase 1. Outside their hidden base, the galaxy continued to burn. But somewhere in the darkness beyond the galactic rim, human fleets waited for their moment to strike back. The aliens had learned too late that humanity had never been their servants. They had been their guardians. Admiral Roy, Hunter stood on the bridge of the HMS Defiance, watching the siege of Nexus Prime through the tactical display. His massive dreadnought hung invisible in space, protected by cloaking technology that made it appear to be nothing more than empty void. Around him, 300 human warships waited in perfect silence. The sight before them was horrific. Devourer bioships swarmed around the galactic capital like hungry insects, their organic hulls pulsing with unnatural light. The alien defense fleet fought desperately, but Hunter could see they were doomed. Without human tactical doctrine and technology, they had no chance against an enemy that turned their own weapons against them. Admiral, called out Communications Officer Kate Walsh, incoming transmission from Earth Command. President Adams wants to speak with you directly. Hunter nodded. Put her through on secure channel. President Adams appeared on Hunter's private screen. Behind her, he could see the members of the Human Defense Council gathered in the Situation Room on Earth. Admiral, what is the status of Operation Guardian? Hunter looked at the tactical display. Phase 1 complete, Madam President. The Devourers have taken the bait and committed their main forces to the Galactic Center. Our cloaked scouts report they have pulled ships from 12 different sectors. And the alien response? As predicted. They are throwing everything they have at Nexus Prime. No coordination, no strategy, just desperate courage. They will lose within hours. President Adams was quiet for a moment. Admiral, we are receiving hundreds of distress calls from alien worlds. Billions of civilians are dying. Hunter felt the weight of those words. Every human officer on the bridge could hear the alien transmissions begging for help, pleading for mercy, crying out for their children. It would have been easy to feel sorry for them. Madam President, with respect, where were those civilians when human colonies were abandoned? When human families died because alien governments decided we were not worth protecting? I know, Admiral. But some of us are having second thoughts. These are innocent people. Hunter walked to the forward viewport where he could see the battle raging around Nexus Prime. Madam President, I served with alien forces for 20 years. I bled alongside them, saved their lives, watched them save mine. But when promotion time came, they always found reasons why humans were not ready for command positions. He turned back to the camera. I remember the Kepler massacre. 3,000 human civilians died because the alien fleet was ordered to protect strategic resources instead of evacuation ships. The Veltari admiral told me that some sacrifices were necessary for the greater good. President Adams sighed. The vote was close, Admiral. 46% wanted to intervene, and the majority voted to let the aliens face the consequences of their choices, Hunter replied. Madam President, we warned them about the Devourer threat for decades. We begged them to prepare. They called us warmongers and paranoids. The bridge crew listened to this exchange in silence. They all had their own memories of alien arrogance and dismissal. Hunter's weapons officer, Commander Patricia Cross, had lost her brother when alien officials refused to provide medical aid to human civilians during a plague outbreak. "Admiral," Cross said quietly, "incoming priority transmission from the alien fleet. It is Chancellor Crix." Hunter looked at President Adams. "Madam President, do you want to hear what they have to say?" "Put it on speaker, Admiral." The voice of Chancellor Crix filled the bridge, crackling with static from battle damage. "This is Chancellor Crix to any human forces monitoring this frequency. Our capital is falling. Our fleets are being destroyed or converted. We know you are out there. We know you could help us." Crix paused as explosions echoed in the background. "We were wrong. We were arrogant. We treated you like servants when you were trying to be our protectors. We understand that now. But please do not let our children pay for our mistakes." Hunter looked around at his crew. He could see conflict in their faces. These were good people who had joined the military to protect others. Watching civilians die while they did nothing went against every instinct they had. "Admiral," President Adams said through the secure channel, "the final decision is yours. As fleet commander, you have discretionary authority in extreme situations." Hunter closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his voice was steady. "Madam President, we spent 50 years trying to teach the aliens how to fight the Devourers. They refused to listen. We built defensive networks to protect them. They dismantled them as too expensive. We warned them this invasion was coming. They ignored us. I know the history, Admiral. Do you also know that when the Devourer scouts first appeared 5 years ago, the Galactic Council voted to classify the reports as human propaganda? They accused us of inventing threats to justify our military spending." Hunter brought up a file on his display. 73 human worlds have been abandoned by alien governments in the past century. 15 billion humans died because aliens decided our lives were worth less than theirs. Now they want us to save them. Through the speakers, they could hear Chancellor Crix's voice becoming more desperate. "Our children are dying, please. We will give you anything you want. Full representation in the council. Equal voting rights. Shared technology. Name your price." Hunter looked at President Adams. "Too little, too late, Madam President. They offer us equality only when they need us to die for them." "Admiral," Cross reported, "Devourer forces have breached the Nexus Prime defense grid. The capital is under direct assault." On the tactical display, Hunter could see bioships landing on the surface of Nexus Prime. Within hours, the seat of galactic government would fall. "Madam President, there is something else you need to know," Hunter said. "Our deep space scouts have detected human energy signatures coming from within Devourer-controlled space." President Adams leaned forward. "What kind of signatures?" "Ship drives, communication arrays, possibly even populated worlds. The Devourers may have taken human prisoners or worse." Hunter brought up long-range sensor data. 3 days ago, we intercepted a transmission from Devourer space. It was a human voice, but the signal was wrong somehow. The voice said, "Phase 2 complete." "Come home, brothers, my God," President Adams whispered. "Do you think they have human captives?" "I think they have something worse, Madam President. I think they have converted humans." The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this horrific possibility. The idea that humans might have been turned into Devourer agents was almost too terrible to consider. "Admiral," Cross said urgently, "the alien defense fleet is collapsing. Chancellor Crix's flagship is taking heavy damage." Hunter looked at the display. The Veltari flagship was surrounded by bioships, its shields failing under constant assault. "Final transmission coming in from Chancellor Crix," Walsh reported. The Chancellor's voice was barely audible through the static and battle noise. "To any humans listening, we understand now. We understand why you prepared for war. We understand why you tried to warn us. We understand why you withdrew when we would not listen." An explosion rocked Crix's ship and his voice became weaker. "If humanity survives this, please remember that some of us learned. Some of us finally understood what we had lost when we pushed you away. Tell your children that not all aliens were your enemies. Some of us just learned too late to be your friends." The transmission cut off as the flagship exploded. Hunter watched the destruction of Nexus Prime with mixed feelings. Part of him felt satisfaction that the aliens were finally paying for their arrogance, but another part felt grief for the loss of life and the end of galactic civilization. "Admiral," President Adams said softly, "what are your orders?" Hunter looked at his crew, then at the tactical display showing the complete collapse of alien resistance. "Madam President, we maintain Operation Guardian protocols. No intervention, no contact, no assistance. Understood, Admiral. Hunter closed the communication channel and turned to his bridge crew. Commander Cross, signal the fleet. We maintain stealth and continue monitoring. Yes, sir, Cross replied, but Hunter could hear reluctance in her voice. Commander, do you have something to say? Cross hesitated, then spoke carefully. Admiral, with respect, some of the crew are having difficulty watching this slaughter without responding. Hunter nodded. Commander, I understand their feelings, but let me remind everyone why we are here. He activated the ship's internal communication system so the entire crew could hear. All hands, this is Admiral Hunter. I know many of you are troubled by what we are witnessing. You joined the human fleet to protect people, and watching civilians die goes against everything we believe. Hunter paused, choosing his words carefully. But remember why we are here. Remember the human colonies that were abandoned. Remember the human families that died while alien governments chose politics over lives. Remember the decades of being treated as second-class citizens while we bled to protect alien worlds? His voice became harder. The aliens made their choice. For over a century, they chose their comfort over our equality. They chose their pride over our warnings. They chose their convenience over our lives. Now they face the consequences of those choices. Hunter looked out at the burning wreckage of Nexus Prime. We are not here to save the galaxy. We are here to ensure humanity survives what the aliens brought upon themselves. When this is over, we will build something better. Something where all species are truly equal. The ship fell silent as the crew absorbed his words. Admiral, Walsh called out. New transmission coming in. It is not from the aliens, Hunter frowned. Source? Deep space, sir. Beyond the galactic rim. The signal is strange. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was human but wrong somehow. It spoke in perfect English, but the tone was cold and emotionless. Human fleet designated defiance. You are observed. Phase 2 is complete. Galactic resistance has ended. Report for integration. Hunter felt ice in his veins. Cut transmission immediately. Yes, sir, Walsh replied quickly. Hunter looked at his crew, seeing his own fear reflected in their faces. Commander Cross, implement communications blackout. No transmissions of any kind without my direct authorization. Understood, Admiral. Hunter stared at the tactical display, his mind racing. The voice had known his ship's name and location despite their advanced cloaking. Whatever the Devourers had done to captured humans, it had given them capabilities no one had anticipated. Admiral, Cross said quietly. What are your orders? Hunter looked out at the ruins of galactic civilization, then at the darkness beyond the galactic rim where something that had once been human was waiting for them. We run silent. We stay hidden, and we prepare for the real war, Hunter said grimly, because I think the aliens were just the appetizer. Outside the ship, the last defenders of Nexus Prime died in the darkness of space. The galaxy's capital was now a devourer feeding ground, and somewhere in the void, converted humans were calling their unconverted brothers home. The nightmare was just beginning. Dr. Richard Stone stood on the observation deck of the HSS Discovery, looking down at the dead world that had once been the Veltari colony of New Arcturus. 2 years had passed since the Devourer invasion began, and the galaxy was a very different place. The planet below was covered in strange organic growths that pulsed with sickly green light. Where once there had been cities and farms, now there were only twisted spires of living tissue that reached toward the sky like grasping fingers. The Devourers had consumed everything and moved on, leaving behind a world that was technically alive but utterly alien. Dr. Stone, called his assistant, Marine Sergeant Carol Wilson, the survey team is ready to deploy. Richard turned away from the disturbing view. Thank you, Sergeant. Make sure everyone has full bioprotection gear. We still do not know what those spores can do to human physiology. As the leader of the human scientific expedition, Richard had been tasked with studying the aftermath of the Devourer invasion. What they had found was both fascinating and terrifying. The Devourers had not simply destroyed galactic civilization, they had transformed it into something completely different. Sir, Wilson continued, we are also receiving a transmission from the surface. It appears to be a group of alien survivors. Richard raised an eyebrow. Survivors? On New Arcturus? Yes, sir. The signal is weak, but it appears to be coming from some kind of underground shelter. Richard followed Wilson to the communications station. After 2 years of searching devastated worlds, they had found very few living aliens. Most had either died in the initial invasion or been converted into something else. "This is Dr. Richard Stone of the Human Scientific Expedition," he said into the transmitter. "We are receiving your signal. Please identify yourselves." The response came back filled with static but clearly desperate. "Dr. Stone! Thank the void you are human. This is Captain Nira of the Veltari Engineering Corps. We have been hiding in the deep mining tunnels for 18 months. How many survivors are with you, Captain?" 43, sir. Mostly civilians and a few military personnel. We have managed to keep the tunnels sealed, but our supplies are running low. Richard looked at Wilson, who nodded. The Discovery had space for refugees, and human policy had changed significantly since the invasion began. "Captain Nira, we can evacuate your people. Are you able to reach the surface?" "Yes, sir, but we will need protection. There are still devourer organisms in the ruins above us." 20 minutes later, Richard led a team of armed Marines to the planet's surface. The landscape was like something from a nightmare. The organic growths covered everything, and strange sounds echoed from within their twisted structures. Occasionally, shapes that might once have been animals or people moved through the biomass, but they were changed beyond recognition. "Contact. 200 meters ahead," reported Lieutenant Murphy, the team's military leader. "Looks like our survivors." A group of bedraggled aliens emerged from a concealed entrance in the ground. They moved carefully, looking around nervously as if expecting attack at any moment. Richard could see why. Several devourer creatures lurked in the shadows of the organic structures, watching but not approaching. Captain Nira was a female Veltari with graying scales and tired eyes. She looked like she had aged a decade in the past 2 years. When she saw Richard, her expression showed a mixture of relief and shame. "Dr. Stone, I cannot express how grateful we are. We thought we would die down there." "You are safe now, Captain," Richard replied. "Let us get your people to the ship." As they walked back to the landing shuttle, Captain Nira stayed close to Richard. "Doctor, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you come back? After everything our governments did to humanity, why are you helping us?" Richard was quiet for a moment. "Captain, we learned something important during the invasion. The galaxy is big enough for everyone if we work together, small enough for no one if we fight each other." They reached the shuttle and began loading the survivors. As they lifted off, Richard could see more devourer creatures emerging from the organic structures below. They watched the shuttle leave but made no attempt to pursue it. Back on the Discovery, the alien refugees were given medical treatment and food. Richard was struck by how different they seemed from the arrogant aliens he remembered from before the invasion. These survivors were humble, grateful, and eager to help with any task. "Dr. Stone," Captain Nira said as they sat in the ship's mess hall, "what happened to the rest of the galaxy? We have been cut off for so long." Richard pulled up a holographic map of local space. Large sections were marked in red. The Devourers consumed about 60% of inhabited systems. Another 20% were abandoned when the governments collapsed. The remaining areas are controlled by small survivor groups like yours. "And humanity? We survived," Richard said simply. "We had been preparing for this invasion for generations. When it came, we were ready." Captain Nira stared at the map. "You knew this would happen?" "We knew something like this was possible. Human scientists had detected signs of extragalactic activity for over 2 centuries. We tried to warn the Galactic Council, but they thought we were being paranoid." "I remember," Nira said quietly. "My own government dismissed the human warnings as fear-mongering." "We thought you were trying to justify your military spending," Richard nodded. That was a common response. Most alien governments could not imagine a threat that required the kind of preparation we were advocating. "Dr. Stone," called Wilson from the communications station, "we are receiving a transmission from Admiral Hunter's fleet. They want to speak with you." Richard excused himself and went to his private office to take the call. Admiral Hunter appeared on screen, looking much more relaxed than he had during the invasion. "Dr. Stone, good to see you again. I understand you picked up some refugees." "Yes, sir. 43 Veltari survivors from New Arcturus. Captain Nira and her people have been very cooperative." Hunter nodded approvingly. "Good. How are they adjusting to the new reality?" "Better than expected, Admiral. 2 years of hiding from devourers has given them a different perspective on cooperation and survival." "I imagine it has. Doctor, I have new orders for your expedition. We want you to investigate the hegemony system. Our scouts report something unusual there. Richard brought up the star charts. What kind of unusual? It appears that some of the converted worlds are reverting to normal conditions. The devourer organisms are dying off and natural ecosystems are beginning to return. That is interesting. Any theories on why? Hunter smiled grimly. We think the devourers are leaving. Our long-range sensors suggest they are moving back toward the galactic rim. Richard felt a mixture of relief and concern. Sir, what about the converted humans? The ones that have been calling to us? Hunter's expression became serious. That is why we need you to investigate, Doctor. We think the conversion process may not be permanent. If we can find a way to reverse it, we might be able to save them. 2 days later, the Discovery arrived at the hegemony homeworld. Richard was amazed by what he saw. The planet that had been covered in devourer biomass was now showing large areas of normal vegetation. The organic structures were withering and collapsing, leaving behind scarred but recognizable landscapes. Sir, Wilson reported, we are detecting life signs on the surface. Multiple species, including what appears to be human signatures. Prepare a landing team, Richard ordered. Full protective gear until we know more about the biological situation. The landing team set down near the ruins of the hegemony capital city. What they found was extraordinary. Groups of aliens were working together to clear away the dying devourer organisms and rebuild their communities. Humans worked alongside Veltaris and Thari and other species in a display of cooperation that would have been unthinkable before the invasion. Richard was greeted by a tall man who appeared to be in his 40s. Dr. Stone, I am General Patricia Cross. I commanded the human survivors here during the occupation. Richard stared at her in surprise. General, we thought all humans in this sector had been converted. Patricia smiled sadly. Some were, but the conversion process was not perfect. About 30% of us maintained our original personalities while gaining access to devourer biological networks. We were able to work from within to sabotage their operations. That is incredible. How many humans are we talking about? In this system? About 5,000. Galaxy-wide, we estimate maybe 50,000 humans survived the conversion process with their minds intact. Patricia led Richard through the ruins of the city, showing him how the mixed communities of survivors were rebuilding. The cooperation between species was remarkable. Aliens who had been enemies for centuries now worked side by side. The invasion changed everything, Patricia explained. When you are fighting for survival against an existential threat, old grudges seem pretty stupid. They stopped at a memorial that had been erected in the city center. It bore names in dozens of languages, humans and aliens who had died defending each other during the occupation. General, what made the devourers leave? Richard asked. Patricia looked up at the sky. We think they completed their mission. They were not here to conquer. They were here to prepare. Prepare for what? We do not know yet. But the converted humans who maintained contact with the Devourer network report that this galaxy was just one stop on a much longer journey. The Devourers are moving on to other galaxies, other civilizations. Richard felt a chill. So this could happen again? Probably. But next time we will be ready. The survivors are already working together to build new defenses, new warning systems, new alliances. As they walked back to the landing site, Richard met Captain Nira and some of the other Veltari refugees. To his surprise, they were already making plans to settle in this mixed community, rather than return to Veltari space. Dr. Stone, Captain Nira explained, we have learned something important during these past 2 years. We are stronger together than apart. The old divisions between species were artificial barriers that made us all weaker. That evening, Richard attended a community meeting where humans and aliens discussed plans for the future. The contrast with the old Galactic Council was stark. Instead of species competing for advantage, he saw genuine cooperation and mutual respect. General Cross spoke to the assembly. We have a choice to make. We can try to rebuild the old galaxy, with its divisions and prejudices and endless conflicts, or we can build something new. A true partnership between species based on equality and shared purpose. The crowd responded with enthusiastic approval. Species that had been enemies now stood side by side, united by their shared experience of loss and survival. After the meeting, Richard spoke privately with General Cross. Patricia, do you think this unity will last? When the immediate threat is gone, will the old divisions return? Patricia looked out at the mixed groups of humans and aliens working together in the moonlight. Richard, these people have seen what happens when we fail to work together. They have watched their worlds burn because of pride and prejudice. They will not make those mistakes again. And humanity's role in all this? We are not the leaders anymore, and we are not the servants either. We are partners, equal partners in building something better than what came before. 2 weeks later, Richard submitted his final report to Earth Command. He recommended that humanity fully support the new mixed communities and abandon any thought of returning to the old galactic order. President Adams responded personally to his report. Dr. Stone, the Human Council has voted unanimously to support your recommendations. We will provide aid and technology to any community that embraces true equality between species. And the communities that want to return to the old ways? They will have to manage on their own. Humanity will not go back to being anyone's servants or protectors. We offer partnership to those who want it, and independence to those who do not. As the Discovery prepared to leave the hegemony system, Richard stood once again on the observation deck. Below, he could see lights beginning to shine again in the rebuilt cities. Humans and aliens worked together under those lights, building a future that neither species could achieve alone. The galaxy had indeed burned. But from its ashes, something better was growing. A civilization based on respect, cooperation, and the hard-learned lesson that survival required unity. The age of human servitude was over. The age of true partnership had begun. And in the darkness between galaxies, the Devourers moved on to their next target, leaving behind a galaxy that had finally learned the price of arrogance and the value of working together. The survivors would be ready if they ever came back.